Welcome to Le Rendezvous. My name is Garance Doré and I'm a writer with many stories, gossips, ideas, theories, and points of views to share about the world we live in. I wanted to create this special moment to talk about all the things that are going on in our lives. So come, let's spend a moment together. Le Rendezvous is brought to you by Doré, the skincare line I co-created, wanting to bring more simplicity and efficacy to our lives. Check out the end of the episode for a special code just for you, the Rendezvous listeners. This is a 4-part series where I take you through a few moments of my life that made me the person I am today. This is how I found my way. Part 3, New York to LA. Landing in New York City is an experience in itself. It's literally like a slap in the face. As soon as you get out of the airport, the noise, the cabs, the atmosphere, everything is different. I loved it right away. Moving there was quite magical. It's not like when I arrived in Paris. I now had enough money to go around and go to restaurants and experience the shops, and I had a new love story beginning there, not only with a new partner, but with a new career. It was very different than Paris, where everything still felt difficult, where I still had to prove myself, where people from the internet were still looked down on. I arrived in New York and right away I was embraced completely. The city took me in without a question. New York is so welcoming in a way. It's just there for the taking. I had a story to tell. I had a few friends already. It was just so easy. As soon as people learned that I had arrived, they also started contacting me. Some of them wanted to take me out for lunch. Others wanted to offer me jobs. The agent that I was working with in Paris had an office in New York. It all happened with so much ease. It's almost like I arrived as a superstar. And I had never seen that, because in Paris I was still this funny, weird blogger. And here in New York, I was this French fashion icon in the making or something. It was very interesting to me because I think when you're 30, you define yourself a lot by the way people look at you. And if in Paris people weren't really sure about me, in New York they were ready. My career grew tenfold in the space of a few months. It was interesting because I forgot to tell you, but when I told Vogue that I wouldn't take the job they had offered me, I remember the publisher telling me, "You will never work for Vogue ever again." It had terrified me because, of course, I didn't want to burn any bridges. I didn't want to make any enemies, and it wasn't against Vogue. I was dreaming of that job. It's just that I had decided to follow that deep call. But I forgot about that pretty fast because of everything that was happening around me. Americans have this wonderful way of welcoming you. They'll throw a dinner if you're new in a town and invite a few people that they think you should meet. They'll be ready to listen to any idea or projects you have and put you in touch with someone that could help you. There is an energy that is definitely so different from what I had experienced in France. There is this, we're all in it together and your success is not a threat for me, so I'm going to help you. And I felt really carried by all this, and I grew not only in my work, because I was slowly becoming much better. These years were not just about growing my profile. It was also about working on my creativity, bettering my photos, my illustrations, my writing. My writing was still at this time just a kind of an afterthought for me. I never thought it would become what it is today, which is one of the most important things in my life. Just wanted to become better at everything. And I started finding people to help me achieve what I wanted. I have to stop for a second and say how beautiful I still find New York. It was so bright. It was so magical. Walking in the streets of Soho, going to Central Park, getting to know East and West, and getting to know how to speak English much better and express myself and be part of the traffic, be part of the town, become slowly a real New Yorker. I absolutely adored it. I had a real love story with that city, and to this day, I have stars in my eyes when I think about it. Fashion in New York was also very different. Paris was the capital of fashion, very sure of itself, very proud of its history, with almost nothing to prove. New York was all about becoming, about growing, about showing the world that Americans could do it too. It was a fascinating time. New designers were popping left and right and challenging this world of fashion. There were parties and there was so much fun to be had, and it was really the place to be. It was a great time to move to America. Something very interesting happened now that I think about it. Do you remember 2008, the huge recession? I was in New York when that happened. It was a few months before I really settled there. And I felt it and I saw it. In a matter of a few weeks, shops closed down, people were fired. It was incredible. Everything changed. But the thing is, with what bloggers had created, we didn't know that, but we were in a position of power almost. Our way of working was much cheaper. We could achieve things that magazines needed to do with huge budgets and teams, and that's when I started getting even more jobs. It took me a while to understand that. So that's a funny memory, because at the same time, it was the premise of this industry slowly crumbling, and the industry of the internet, of influence, of blogging, growing slowly, without knowing that one day it would take over. I enjoyed this new lifestyle for a few years. Emily came by. It was just the two of us in the beginning, and she started helping me to grow a team around me. First an assistant, then an editor, slowly making something out of this little blog that I had started in Marseille. By that time, I was invited everywhere, and I was starting to become a sort of a celebrity in the fashion world. I enjoyed it very much, but I started feeling the pressure as soon as things started changing for me. I can say now something that I couldn't say at the time because I didn't know what it was, but I liked it better being an outsider. It felt more like me. It felt more funny. It felt more challenging, interesting, different. Once I started being seated front row, once I started having an image to cater to and to safeguard, it all felt like work for the first time. I took it very seriously because I knew my chance. I knew where I came from. I never forgot that. But maybe also I started taking it too seriously. I had a mission. I needed to be that person that I thought people wanted me to be. I needed to be fun. I needed to be well-dressed. I needed There was so many things that I felt were expected of me, and I was trying to do all of it. Fashion Week started to crystallize that for me, and I started being in denial pretty early. I wouldn't have told you that at the time because I was very detached from my emotions still. I would tell you I loved it, that it was a dream, that I couldn't wait for Fashion Week. It took me years to realize that actually I was feeling great discomfort. Where did it come from? I think there was an imposter syndrome. I still didn't feel like I was a part of these fabulous people. I think there was an element of truth. I actually wasn't made to be seated in these front rows. And I would get to know that later. I also think now that I was catching on this energy that lies there in the middle of fashion shows, and which is the energy of insecurity, the energy of how is that person dressed, what's their position, what can they do for me, all these things that were not very poetic for me. I was a dreamer, and here I found myself in an industry. Yes, of course, it's an industry that's built on dreams, that's built on beauty, but it's also an industry that's built on a lot of insecurity, on superficiality, and at the end of the day, it's an industry that's here to sell. And I think that it took a while for me to understand exactly where I was. I was so new to all this. So I kept going because how can you complain about not only being seated front row in the best shows around the world, being flown by brands, being given hundreds of clothes and accessories and bags and beauty products, being so spoiled when a few years earlier I had had nothing. I thought it's not ever going to get better than that. Nothing can be better than that. What more can I want? And I kept going, and I played the part, and I did it quite well for a while, even though the dread and the sense of profound discomfort was slowly eating up all my joy and enthusiasm and all the love that I had felt for this world. Of course, there was also the competition and the bitchiness and the never being skinny enough and the never being good enough. That was very difficult to me, but I just kept going. After a few years in New York and feeling the magic of it, I also felt, I think it's a sense of loneliness that everybody that's there very soon starts feeling. In my experience, there was a sense of shallowness. It's almost like the city that's so built on energy doesn't have the depth and the silence and the space that I needed to develop real friendships, real relationships. People come and go, they move for a few years and then they leave. They're incredibly busy, they're here with a mission. Everybody travels around the world so much. It's this type of city. At the weekends, everybody's very busy doing so much that sometimes you feel like, in my experience at least, people are here just as company to do other stuff. Let's go have brunch. Let's go to yoga. Let's do this, let's do that. I had millions of friends, but I felt very lonely and I couldn't put my finger on it. I also couldn't stand being alone. I felt very insecure. I think I could say now New York were years of real insecurity for me. I hadn't connected for a long time with my solitude, the sense of dropping in myself, my wholesomeness. All of these things were in the background. What was more important in my New York days was where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, what was the next project, where I was going. I remember one year counting the consecutive days I had spent in New York. The maximum was 10 days. That's how much I was traveling. Traveling can be a trap for some people like me who need to be more calm. It makes you believe that you have this very full life. But when you come home, there is nothing and there is no one. Parallel to that, my team was growing. And after the explosion of fashion, now everybody couldn't stop talking about the businesswoman. There was this new trend that was emerging about career women, CEOs, what people called boss ladies, moguls. You could see photos of them in magazines everywhere. And I think I kind of fell for that trend. Emily and I did. So we started imagining ourselves in this big studio with our publication, and because it was New York, we made this dream happen. Our team was growing. We were 5 or 6. I had now hired photographers, editors, people taking care of the advertising part of the business. This was starting to be a serious endeavor. At this time, you could find photos of me sitting on my desk like I owned the world. But it was very funny because the day we finally signed our lease for a beautiful studio on Broadway, which to me was an achievement in and of itself, because again, it's like, what? Me? Me from Ajaccio signing a lease on an office at the 16th floor on Broadway? No way, that's crazy. We signed, we settled, we made it look beautiful, got out of my apartment where we were still working and all got into the new big shiny studio, and I set myself a beautiful desk and I was ready, going there with my high heels and, the dream. And it was an absolute disaster, as usual with the fake dreams that I have pursued all my life. It took only a few weeks for me to realize that I hated being at the office. I couldn't work at the office. Just too many energies. And I hadn't realized that, I don't know, maybe I'm just too porous to energy. I don't know what it is with me, but if I'm sitting next to people, I can't do anything. I can't work. I can't write. I have no ideas. I just want to talk. I just want to eat. I just want to embrace life. Maybe I'm just too sensitive to people's energies. Maybe that's the same thing that was happening at the fashion shows. I still don't know. But the truth is that very soon I started staying at home in the calm to write my stories, go back to editing my own photos. And that was the seed of me slowly abandoning my team. In the beginning, I said to Emily, who was slowly on her way to becoming my CEO, I said, you know what, why don't we do creative meetings and I'll come to the office when you need me once a day or every other day, and we can make this work. And that's what we did for a while, and it worked. I was quite absent for my team, but at least I was still very involved in my own personal creative work. And that creative work was what was keeping all of it alive. People were coming for my photography, for my illustrations, and even now they were coming for my writing, which made me so happy. But I was still generating all this money, except now I needed to pay for that team. I needed to grow, and I had given myself all these goals because that's what he did at that time. So for a while, we tried to find the right arrangement, and it worked. Kind of. I had developed with my audience over the years the most wonderful bond. I loved them. I felt like I knew them. And it always seems a bit weird to talk about it like that because an audience is not just one person. But there was this bond, there was this thing when I would meet them, there was a kinship, something really strong that was happening. And as I was building a team and having editors and writers write for my blog, photographers taking the photos, I slowly was losing touch with that beautiful thing that I had developed with my audience. By that time, my life had become exhausting. Yes, I had everything. I was making a lot of money. My agent was constantly busy. I was invited to all fashion shows at all fashion weeks and traveling for months on end. My work as a photographer was getting me day rates that were incredible. I had love. I had a rich social life. I had the office on Broadway. I got awards. I got a CFDA award. I even had the New York Times calling me the guardian of all style. Oh, and I even got a column in Vogue Paris, if you can believe it. They had called me back. I had it all. And yet inside, the chasm was really starting to show. I could feel something was wrong. I could feel I was not doing well. I was exhausted. I was crashing constantly. I was so tired that I was running on sugar highs constantly. I was having panic attacks. I was starting to lose my sleep. Except at that time, I didn't think these were problems. I just thought, oh, you're tired. Just try to rest. I don't think I can pinpoint exactly the moment when my life shifted from excitement, brightness, achievement, to a sense of darkness, dullness, and depression. I just know that there were more parties, more friends, more traveling, more of everything, and just much less happiness. Things started to crumble and I couldn't see it. My health started suffering. I had terrible back pain because of carrying the camera, but also because I think of carrying this life that wasn't really mine anymore. I had hormonal issues. I had sugar crashes constantly. My skin was red. And I think my body was screaming at me, you need to stop. You're unhappy. You've taken the wrong path. But I still wanted to believe in the dream that I had been building for so many years. I started having trouble with friends and slowly realizing these people aren't really my friends. What's going on? People being fickle, dropping you if something better was coming along. It was very interesting. It was a real moment of looking at myself in the mirror and being like, okay, what have you built? What do you want? What's all that for? I remember talking to my boyfriend and we were doing the exact same thing, except he was having a blast. He completely embraced the lifestyle. He loved the traveling. He loved the attention. He loved the photography. He loved his job. He told me, I'll do that all my life. This is all I want to do. I'll go in and out of fashion, but I don't care. This is the lifestyle. I just want to go out and take photos of people on the street. I started telling him that I needed to rest and that I wanted to travel much less. It was very difficult because it was kind of a break in our lifestyle. And then when I started staying in New York, the depth of the emptiness that constituted my life started to show. Because traveling masks everything, doesn't it? You're always coming, going. You never have a second to look at yourself. You never have a second to interrogate your soul, to question your lifestyle, to see if your friends are truly your friends. Staying in New York, living there for real for once, showed me all the things that I hadn't built. My boyfriend was still traveling while I started really trying to say no, to take it slow, to make choices, to be much more mindful about my life. And what I discovered truly wasn't great. By that time, Fashion Week had become a nightmare for me. I thought I needed to be someone that I wasn't. I thought that I needed to dress the part. I thought that I needed to be everywhere, every party, every fashion show. Something inside me was probably starting to shut down, but I kept going like a ghost. I remember telling my friends from fashion, how do you feel? How does it feel for you? Because I feel only dread now. And them telling me, oh, I'm fine. This is great. I love it. Wasn't it beautiful? And others telling me, no, it's very difficult to go to fashion shows, but fashion is your platform. That's where you made your name. Keep going. And I kept going. I remember one day telling my boyfriend, hey, what would you think about moving out of the city? Is it something you'd consider? I was starting to think about upstate, a little house in the countryside. I was interested. My friends were starting to buy farms and to move out of the city, and something there was really talking to me. I also was starting to think about moving towns. There was a restlessness now. I talked to him about moving to LA, which made him laugh because he was like, how can I do my work in LA? There is no one on the streets. And he was so right. The relationship didn't make it. Over the years, we had changed, and I think our life projects weren't aligned anymore. The relationship ended, and I found myself alone in New York at 39. My team was working hard, making things happen. Social media had made its appearance on the scene, and things were very quickly changing. New influencers were showing up. Brands were quickly changing their way of doing things. I could feel a shift coming. I was working on my book at that time, having so much fun with it, but also feeling so much pressure. It came out in 2015. I did a huge book tour. My team was growing. By that time, we were about 20. The book was an instant New York Times bestseller. I was on the cover of magazines. Everything seemed great from the outside. But inside, I was heading towards the wall, and I didn't know it. Because I was on such high from being single for the first time, for having so much success. I think that all the disconnects in my life were feeding a sense of fake self, of thinking, if I convince myself that I am this person, then I'm going to become her. I'll be that person that enjoys all the fruits of her work, this businesswoman, this creative powerhouse. I'll be all the things that people think I am. If I work hard enough at it, this is going to work. I met someone new in a state of unconsciousness, I think, that I had reached, where I didn't really know who I was anymore. And one day, on a whim, I told him, let's move to LA. This was the part 3 of my story of how I found my way. And next time will be the last episode. I hope you'll be there. Thank you for listening. Sending you love. Le Rendezvous is brought to you by Doré. Minimize bathroom time and maximize outdoor time with our super simple routine of made in France skincare. Use code podcast10 for 10% off your first order. Thank you for listening to Le Rendezvous. If you want to know more about me, find out about my newsletter and my community, find me on Instagram at Garance Doré or at my website at garance.world. And well, if you'd like to find out how to spell that crazy name, just check out the show notes. Until next time, sending you love.